The room is quiet in a way that feels expensive. Glass walls, soft leather chairs, a table that probably cost more than most people's cars. And at the head of it, the CEO is smiling. Not because the numbers are good, not because the strategy worked. He's smiling because he's about to remind someone who has power. He turns slightly, looks down the table, at the assistant. She hasn't spoken once in the meeting. He clears his throat and says, casually, almost bored, "Next time, don't interrupt conversations that are above your role." A pause. A few people glance down at their notes. Someone coughs. The assistant nods, calm, silent. What no one in that room realizes is that the company technically stopped being his an hour ago, and the person he just humiliated is the reason. That's not a metaphor, that's corporate math, and it's happening more often than you think, because this story isn't really about ego, it's about how power actually moves inside modern companies, quietly, legally, on paper, while everyone is watching the wrong person. Here's why this matters right now. Most people believe companies are run by the loudest voice in the room, the CEO, the founder, the person with the title. That belief made sense 40 years ago. It's dangerously outdated today. In modern corporate structures, authority doesn't sit where visibility sits. It sits where ownership, voting rights, and control mechanisms quietly intersect. And that gap between who looks powerful and who actually is where this story lives. Let's rewind. The assistant didn't start as an assistant. She started as an observer. Her father founded the company 25 years earlier, built it through acquisitions, debt cycles, near bankruptcies, then stepped back. Not retired, strategically absent. He didn't hand the company to his daughter. That would have been obvious, messy, emotional. Instead, he put the company into a trust, a legal structure most employees don't understand and most executives underestimate. Here's the simple version. A trust can own shares. Those shares can carry voting rights, and the person who controls the trust controls the company, even if their name never appears on the website, even if they sit quietly at the edge of the room. In this case, the trust owned just over 51% of the voting stock. Barely a majority, but in corporate terms, that's absolute power. The CEO knew the trust existed. What he didn't know was who was being trained to control it. Because while he was busy optimizing quarterly earnings, the founder was optimizing succession. The assistant's job wasn't scheduling meetings. It was watching how decisions were made. Who spoke? Who overreached? Who mistook confidence for control? That's why she didn't argue. That's why she didn't correct him. That's why she took notes. Silence, in this case, wasn't weakness. It was due diligence. Now let's talk about the humiliation. From the CEO's perspective, it made perfect sense. In his mental model, the hierarchy was clear. Board above him, he above everyone else, assistant at the bottom. He believed power flowed downward, through org charts, through titles, through performance reviews. That's how management textbooks describe it. That's not how ownership works. Ownership flows sideways, through entities, through instruments, through clauses buried on page 47 of legal documents no one reads in meetings. The assistant wasn't offended by the comment. She wasn't even surprised. She waited. Because timing matters more than truth in corporate systems. Then she slid the folder across the table, not dramatically, no speech, no warning, just paper. Inside were 3 things. First, a notarized transfer of voting authority, effective that morning. Second, a clause from the trust agreement, the one that allowed the controller to remove executive officers without cause. Third, a calendar invite, a board vote, scheduled for the end of the meeting. Here's the uncomfortable part. Nothing illegal happened, nothing unethical, technically. The CEO had been running a company he didn't control for years because he never bothered to ask the only question that matters: who can fire me? That question makes people uncomfortable, so they avoid it. He assumed power because the room treated him like power. That assumption cost him everything. Now, zoom out. This isn't rare. Private equity firms do this all the time. So do family offices. So do founders who step back but never really leave. They place operational leaders at the front and control levers in the background. The visible leader absorbs pressure. The invisible owner absorbs value. It's efficient, it's legal, and it's completely misunderstood. Here's where the irony gets sharp. The CEO had just finished a slide on organizational transparency. He believed information asymmetry was a risk. He just didn't realize he was living inside one, because transparency is usually demanded downward, rarely upward. Employees are told to be open, executives are told to be confident, owners are told nothing at all. That's the hidden mechanism. Power doesn't announce itself. It waits until it's needed. When the board voted, there was no argument. They had known for weeks. That's another quiet truth. By the time something becomes public inside a company, it's already old news to the people who matter. The CEO stood up slowly, not angry, just confused. He said one sentence. It didn't land. The assistant didn't smile, didn't gloat. She just said, calmly, "This meeting is over." And that was it. No shouting, no escort, no dramatic exit. Just a man realizing he had mistaken noise for leverage. Now the bigger implication. If you work in or around modern companies, especially tech, finance, or family-owned enterprises, you are probably watching the wrong signals. You watch titles, LinkedIn updates, press releases, conference appearances. Meanwhile, control is moving through trusts, convertible shares, and quiet board votes. This creates a dangerous illusion. People believe the system is merit-based, that performance equals authority, that visibility equals influence. Sometimes it does. Often, it doesn't. And the risk isn't just personal, it's structural. Because when decision makers are shielded from accountability, when real power isn't exposed to scrutiny, mistakes compound quietly. No one challenges the silent owner. No one audits their incentives. No one even knows where to look until it's too late. That assistant didn't win because she was underestimated. She won because the system was designed that way. She didn't break the rules. She followed them better than everyone else. Which leads to an uncomfortable question. If the person running the meeting isn't the person running the company, who are you really working for? And more importantly, how would you know?